はい、皆さんこんにちは。グリーンゾーンジャパンの三木です。今日は私はシアトルから南に約4時間ほど車を走らせたところにあるオレゴン州ポートランドに来ています。この私の後ろにある建物なんですが、イマーシブ・セラピーズという施設です。ここはですね、昨年オレゴン州で合法化されましたシロシビン、マジックマッシュルームに含まれる成分である幻覚剤シロシビンを使っての心理療法を合法的に受けられる場所になっています。先日ですね、 YouTube の動画で日本人初のシロシビンアシステッドセラピーファシリテーターの資格を取られた杉田直子さんと、日本人で初めて合法的にシロシビンアシステッドセラピーを受けられたあきこさんと、3人の対談の動画を、アップしましたけれども、今日はそのあきこさんがですね、2回目のセッションをこちらで受けるということで、同行させていただきました。で、9時半からの営業なんですけれども、他の患者さんの邪魔にならないように営業前に特別に中を見せてくださるということなので、オーナーのフランクさんに中の施設を、案内してもらおうと思います。
Well, welcome to Immersive. We are one of the first legal psilocybin service centers here in the United States. This is our deer, and the deer is a gentle but noble guide. It's a good omen in a lot of cultures, certainly in Asian cultures, in North American cultures, and ours has magic mushrooms on top. This here is available for legal psilocybin journeys. So we are allowed to provide psilocybin for therapeutic use here. We provide microdoses and macrodoses. We have facilitators who are licensed, and they talk with the client and understand what the client is wanting to do. So we're very careful about setting intentions, and our facilitators will guide them through the experience.
Okay.
So the space is designed to, number one, be safe, and also very conducive for people's explorations. Okay. This is one of our group rooms. So this room is a different vibe, and it has private areas and also a common space, so that a facilitator or two facilitators can watch and guide a group of people who are going through similar experiences. And even though they're in here as a group therapy, they can still have their private time and private space, and then when they need it, and then they can also come back out and join the group. And we find that a lot of times with the right group, the experience is quite magical, because people then have a built-in pure support. So even though a journey with psilocybin can be intensely personal, people don't have to feel like they have to do this alone. So we provide a lot of support in terms of facilitators, but also in terms of other people going through the experience. You know, one of the challenges for providing psilocybin therapy has been the cost. And the biggest cost has been facilitator time. And so a lot of times if we are able to have one facilitator watch with a line of sight more than one person, then we can really reduce the cost while providing the same level of service. Yeah, and then the group dynamic in certain situations is even more powerful. So, you know, not all journeys should be done as a group. There's certainly some very intense ones that will require one-on-one. But there are, you know, in therapy, there are many cases where group is even more advantageous. So, yeah. This space here is another opportunity for group work. So sometimes we have, the intention is to have military, veterans or a group of people who can start out here and then still have each of their private rooms. There's a shower in here in case somebody needs that. And these are rooms that can be either used for individuals. So with psilocybin work, you frequently want the individual to feel like they're very secure, like they're in a cocoon. And so this is a nice cozy room that they have private. And they have earphones, headphones, so that they hear the music. That is very important and it's an essential part of the psilocybin experience. Frequently the facilitators will choose a whole soundtrack that has a very intentional cadence and rhythm and crescendo and soft landing so that it really contours the whole experience. We follow the Johns Hopkins protocols for some cases, but the facilitator really chooses the experience based on what the client is looking for.
Right.
So there's 4 rooms here, and they look fairly similar. And sometimes people can have group work where people come as a couple, but they still need a little bit more separation to be able to have their own private journeys. So this would be appropriate for that. So you can see that we've really been very careful in designing the space layout so that there's many different varieties. So there's opportunities for one person to have very private experience. There's also opportunities for groups of 2 or 3 or 4, and then in that room maybe up to 6, and then in the big room up to 25 people. So this psilocybin, our psilocybin is kept locked up. So it is, we're very careful, and the state is very careful to track it. So the psilocybin that we use is very regulated. It's also tested. So we know exactly how much of the psychoactive ingredients are in there. So there's psilocybin, there's psilocin, there's other triptans too. So there's baeocystin or psilocin. So we get growers who are licensed by the state, and they send all of their products, all their mushrooms that they grow, to a lab, and the lab tests it to make sure that it's safe, but it's also making sure it's the right species, that it's a psilocybe cubensis, and then also testing to see what all the different substances, the psychoactive triptans, are in there. And although we know most about psilocybin, we're now getting more and more experience with the entourage effect. So we know that all these other triptans can affect the nature of the journey.
Right.
So that
was exactly my question, because I come from medical cannabis advocacy, and we talk about different strains and different effects. So does the same thing apply to mushrooms?
Yeah, so remember when cannabis was just becoming legalized, and then the tested the legal mushroom, the legal cannabis is a lot stronger just because of the ability to then test it and grow it and genetically kind of combine it to get different characteristics. So yeah, we're getting into that phase where we're getting more sophisticated in our understanding of the entourage effect. So we have strains that are more mystical. We have some strains that are more intense. Some are more introspective. Some are more euphoric and happy. So
wow, that's fascinating.
We're starting to track that. And that's one of the benefits of legalization, is that we can really study it. we're finding out that when people come, compared to the mushrooms that are available on the street, oftentimes these are, one, much more predictable because we know exactly how much psychoactive is in the mushroom. The mushrooms, even the same strain, a different batch, can vary wildly in how much psychoactive ingredient is in there, and even the ratios of each of the different ones. So when we get our mushrooms, I shop all the different mushroom growers, and I am always looking at, well, how much of each of these different triptans are in there, so that I choose based on their profiles. And we get them fresh for about one week beforehand. So you can't come in here, but I'll open it up and I'll bring it out.
Okay.
Growers, I can put it right here. These are some of our 2 different mushroom growers, but this one is from the first farm that was legal in the United States. And so these are whole mushrooms. And so some of our facilitators like to have the client have a relationship with what they're taking. So seeing it whole is special. And then there's a way that people would just take it and chew it. And there's a mastication technique where you keep chewing it until you break down the cell walls so that a lot of the psilocybin comes out. The cell wall has a lot of chitin, which is kind of like a protein. It was a fibrous tissue, kind of like crab, the crab shell, and so it's not very digestible. So there's a lot of different techniques to get past that, because eating that chitin can make someone stomach very upset. So there's different ways, like adding lemon to it, which will help to pre-digest it and change the psilocybin to psilocin beforehand, to help people get the most out of it faster. Sometimes sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes facilitators want just a gentler rise, so then they would just let it go on naturally. So this is another form. So there can be whole mushrooms, or this is one that comes in a powder. It's already ground up, and then we make a tea out of this. So this grower is very nice. I won't open. Well, let's see.
You don't have to.
So it comes like this. It's already powdered, and then that can be put into hot boiling water, and then we let that steep for about 8 minutes at least, and then it is a tea. And the advantage of the tea is that it can be titrated, so somebody can take a little bit at a time, and the facilitator will monitor how they're doing and see if they need a boost. So in Oregon, we're allowed to offer a second boost. The facilitator will make sure that the client is okay to take a second boost, that they're coherent, that they're conscious, that they're able to give their consent to take another boost. Yeah.
Oh, we're back here.
And we're back.